Hi, everybody. We have three great guests joining us live on today's Town Hall. First, we're going to talk about the economy looking like it was getting back on track, but then bad news this morning. An industry expert will give his take on what some are calling one of the most disappointing jobs report of all time.
Plus, after a troubling year for the Williamsville School District, new leadership now officially in place. We're going to have a conversation with Dr. Darren Brown Hall, who made history when he was named the new school superintendent last night.
And back in business, the Buffalo Niagara Convention Center coming alive once again as we look forward to a post-pandemic era, the changes happening and what it could mean for the local economy.
We have those guests, plus a couple of stories from our Verified team on the rundown for this Friday. We're certainly glad you're here. I'm Kate Welshofer.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Wooten. Economists and really all of us kind of hit with that major surprise earlier today. We thought that April would have produced 1 million new jobs. Well, that did not happen. Instead, employers added just 266,000 new positions last month, far below most of those predictions. The unemployment rate actually ticked up 1/10 of a point to 6.1%. Kind of a punch in the gut for a lot of people who thought the economy was roaring back. Here live right now to talk about all that is Mark Hamrick, Senior Economic Analyst and Washington Bureau Chief for Bankrate.com. Mark, you are a repeat guest and a friend of the show. It's always great to have you on for your analysis.
It's my great pleasure. Thank you, Michael.
So, Mark, these numbers are not even close to what was expected. And a lot of people are like, excuse me, what? How'd this happen? So just as people thought the economy was starting to really come back, what is the takeaway from what really happened here with this report?
Sure. Well, let's keep things in perspective a little bit. The unemployment rate, as you say, is now at 6.1%. The official rate at its worst last year was 14.7. So this journey has often been a one step forward, one step sideways, one step back, and one step forward again. And this is 1 month's set of numbers. And I've been doing this long enough to know that we don't instill a great deal of trust in 1 month to say that a trend has been established. Let's remember that March and April of last year, we had 22 million jobs lost, which was quite stunning, really the most severe downturn in U.S. history. And we're putting those puzzle pieces back together again, but those puzzle pieces are having to be recut. And the front of the puzzle, being the economy, is going to look different. It already looks different going forward. We should expect surprises. In fact, I would be surprised if we don't have further surprises, but I think the recovery is still on track. But reopening the economy is every bit as challenging in different ways than is closing down the economy that we did last year.
Yeah, Mark, when we look at cases or something, for instance, related to the pandemic, we say don't pay too much attention to one day. You're saying don't pay too much attention to 1 month. But it is a reminder to us that the future is still uncertain. I want to show our viewers something that you tweeted this morning, that putting the economy back together after the pandemic caused it to collapse is not going to be easy, but you say the recovery will continue. I think people are wondering about the time frame for that. What updated look ahead do you have at this point?
Well, let's take a look at some of the numbers that we've been talking about on a weekly basis, and that's the new claims for unemployment benefits. We've had positive surprises with those numbers over each of the past 4 weeks. The new claims for unemployment benefits on a national level are essentially at 2 times the number that we would have seen in a normal week in the past, but that is a long ways away from the worst of the new claims that we had seen before. Listen, the growth for this year is still expected to be the best since the early 1980s, and growth next year is expected to be superior as well. And so this is an uneven path. We don't have a playbook for reopening an economy after a pandemic or during one, and so we should expect that this will be uncertain and volatile.
And we're hearing a lot of people saying, looking at this, that the enhanced unemployment benefits are to blame for the lackluster jobs numbers, that there's less of an incentive for people to actually go back to work. Last half hour, we played President Biden responding to that today. He's saying there's nothing measurable to support that theory. So what do you think? Do you think that these enhanced unemployment benefits are ultimately hurting the job market?
I think many people are going to their political safe places to extract the arguments for and against that. And I think the president is right that there isn't something we can look at this report and come up with that argument. There are a lot of things that are keeping people from going back to the workforce, including the decision whether they want to have the jobs that they had before. Think about the restaurant and bar workers who might have taken a gig economy job during this time and then were able to basically make the decision of what the hours they wanted to work. work. We know there's a big array of opinions out there on trust or the acceptance of the vaccine itself. So there are a lot of things happening here. The ability of women to go back into the workforce after having cared for their children because they bore the brunt of that work during this time. A lot of different puzzle pieces are being put together here.
Mark Hamrick with Bankrate.com. It's always great to have you on, and you have another hat to show. You always come prepared with a prop because we know that you love Buffalo, even though you're in the D.C. area now. So it is great to see you.
Springtime is here, and go Bills.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks again, Mark. So we're going to dig deeper into another big headline of the day. The second largest school district in Western New York has some new leadership today, and we have reported on the trouble in the Williamsville School District throughout the pandemic and the widespread complaints about longtime Superintendent Scott Martzloff, who was forced out last fall. Now, Dr. Darren Brown Hall has moved into that office, and we are glad that he's decided to join our town hall today. Thanks again for being with us live to chat about this big new change for you and for the district.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Right off the top, we want people to know you are the first black suburban school superintendent in Erie or Niagara County, and also the first openly gay superintendent in those two counties. That is a big deal for a lot of people who are watching right now. I wonder if you can reflect on that and also tell us what this process has been like for you.
Absolutely. So, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the recognition, but I want to be visible so that any other young student, young boy, young girl that is gay or they are having trouble dealing with their sexuality, they can see that, there are people of color who are gay, who are doing great things and who are really providing and doing great work in society. And, I want to also say that, and I always say this, but I appreciate the Williamsville board, the stakeholders, and the search consultant, Lynn Fusco, ensuring that there were no artificial barriers in place that would prohibit a qualified person of color to advance through the rigorous process that they set up to hire a new superintendent. So, I appreciate them for that, and I'm glad to have been selected as the next superintendent in Williamsville.
Talking a little bit about your background, you come from the Buffalo School District where you were the chief of staff, so essentially number 2 behind Dr. Kreiner Cash. You led the reopening for the district, which was the last in the state to reopen for in-person instruction. So for the parents in Williamsville who had pushed for in-person instruction 5 days a week, that may be a little bit of a concern for them. So what would you say to those parents?
Right. Well, what I would say is that every district is different. So in Buffalo, our demographics were different, and we knew that COVID-19, it affected Black and brown families different, right? So we had to be cautious in the city with our return. It was a slower return, but we had to be very cautious. We took the advice of our medical director, Dr. Dennis Quo, and we applied steps accordingly to have our students return. Now, as I said, every district is different, but every parent, there were a bunch of parents in Buffalo that also wanted their students to return. And so we worked with those parents to let them know what steps we were taking to have their students return. Now in Williamsville, all grade up to grade 4 students are back in school 5 days a week. So we will work once the transmission rates are low enough to get our middle school and our high school students back as often as possible also.
We think we're going to be talking about that a lot on Monday because when you look at the numbers and the metrics that are used, we may get below that 100 mark early next week. So that could be changing. A little bit of a preview. We're going to have the county executive on Monday. But let's end quickly if we can. Your expectations for the fall as we look ahead. How different are things going to be for the fall? Or maybe I should say how normal may things be there in Williamsville come the fall?
Right. Well, every school district, Williamsville included, we are looking to have a return to full as much as possible with all of our students, all of our schools. But we also want to be very cognizant that some parents may not feel comfortable sending their students back because the vaccines may not be available for students under the age of 12 yet. So we want to also explore remote learning options for the fall so that every parent has a difficult decision to make with sending their kid back 5 days a week or keeping them on remote learning. And we want to be able to accommodate as many families as possible to ensure that all students are getting a quality education, no matter what medium they choose.
We have been talking with Dr. Darren Brown Hall, the new superintendent in Williamsville. Thank you again for your time and have a great weekend.
You also. Thank you very much.